You're listening to the Scars and Guitars podcast series that syndicates for the A-List Online, and my name is Andrew Mackay-Smith. Hope you're well. The interview subject I have coming up for you is indeed special. It is Neal Morse, a prog rock icon. The reason for the conversation with Neal is because he has two shows, acoustic and in the raw, in Australia. Of course, there can only be two cities if you're playing two shows in Australia. Where else would they be but Melbourne and Sydney? Melbourne, your first cab off the rank on the 31st of January 2020 at the Evelyn Hotel. And then Sydney. You got your show at Crowbar on the 1st of February. So here he is, the prog master, Neal Morse. Hey Neal, it's Andrew Mackay-Smith calling for our chat. How you going?
Hey, it's going great, man. How are you doing?
I'm very good, man. I'm very good. I assume you've had a fairly busy day of interviews and the like, so how have they been going?
Oh, it's been really great. Yeah, I just finished up all the first draft of all my stuff on the new Transatlantic,
Nice.
and now I'm practicing for these shows in Australia, and I'm really excited to be coming there. And yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah. Look, that sounds awesome, by the way. Yeah. It's really hard to know where to start when I was thinking of questions to ask you, because
Okay.
you appear as a driving force in almost 40 studio albums of material, and there's triple that when you start including compilations and live material, and no doubt some other fan goodies that you've put out there. But as far as I'm concerned, mate, you've become something of a byword as the thinking man's heavy metal or hard rock musician. You know what I mean when I say that. You know, you tend to appeal to us hard rock and heavy metal musicians and fans, and you do count a horde of musicians in your audience. I think you're really only rivaled by King's X really on that front, and you know, you're part of a peer group that includes Paul Gilbert, Eric Burden from the Animals. There you go, that's incredible. Mike Portnoy, Steve Morse, Peter Truavis out of Marillion, and so many more. All of these artists,
Yeah.
including yourself, you know, such important and critically revered musicians born of the late 20th century and the early 21st century where we are now. But, mate, here you are now having a chat to little old me, preparing for these two shows, as you mentioned, in Australia, performing acoustic and unplugged, so to speak. So, mate, all of that said, that preamble there, how on earth do you cull a set list from such a vast and impressive resume?
Well, that's funny you should ask me because I was just creating it today,
Right.
and I was looking at well, there's only so much I can really pull off of my catalog, by myself.
Hmm.
A lot of the prog, the heavy, real heavy prog stuff is very, it takes many musicians. It takes more than, 4 or 5. Sometimes, that's why at Morse Fest we'll have 30 people on stage. So,
Indeed.
yeah, so I've been looking at what can I do effectively, and yeah, it's a challenge, but it's a fun one.
Look, and the obvious question too, and I don't want to punish you over this, but indulge me for a moment. You're only playing the two shows, so you're coming all this way to play the two shows. Now, I know there's a lot that goes into putting on shows regardless, but were Brisbane and Perth a consideration?
Oh, yeah. Well, I actually threw it out there. We were coming. We're my wife and I. My wife had booked a vacation there actually,
Uh-huh.
and then she said, "Why don't you see if somebody can book some shows?" And yeah, so that's the truth of it. And I
Fair
just threw
enough.
it out there to some agents that I knew actually in Europe and said, "Hey, do you have any connects in Australia?" And this is what they came up with. I had said, yeah, I had said I could do more shows, but these were the ones that made the most sense. And so, yeah, we're just doing the two.
Yeah, the two port cities in Australia at the end of the day where most people fly into and have some awareness of it. I mean, at the end of the day, people can travel. You know, we're not that. I mean, you know, we're all sort of pretty far apart, the cities, but we're only sort of an hour or two away from each other on the eastern seaboard, so there's no dramas there.
Right.
You
Oh,
know.
good.
So, I hope you don't mind me asking you this question, because I think this is very, when I say brave of you, the fact that you are a Christian and you're very, you're you're very forthright about that too, and the way your faith informs your music. But I guess that's the question for you: is how does your Christian faith inform your music these days?
Well, whenever I'm, singing or I'm working on the lyrics to things, you write from your heart, and if your heart is changed, so to speak, your heart is, about the Lord, and you're really thankful for just all that He's done, and it's a very natural thing to just express that in your music, and so I'm just amazed that that He always seems to help me to express it in a way that maybe I haven't said in quite the same way. That is actually the challenge. The challenge is how to talk about, a similar thing, like the love of God or the Spirit of God or whatever however you might want to put it.
Yeah.
How can you talk about it in a way that's fresh and compelling?
Yeah, that's a really good point right there, I think, is, look, I grew up in an era where black metal, death metal was very much focused on the satanic and the subversive, if you like, and it became something that, you're brave for being out there and having these views and opinions about Satanism or whatever it might be, but it's sort of come back around these days where I think people who are expressing their Christian faith in a way that you are, where it's not fully, you're not bashing somebody over the head with it, but it's there if you want to dive into it. I think it's a wonderful thing, mate, because, mate, as we all know, mate, and I don't necessarily think the world is a bad place, but if you read a lot of mainstream media, you're going to bloody well think it's a bad place, and you need things to make you feel uplifted. And I think your music's a very good medium for that.
Well, thanks, man. Yeah, that's true. if you watch too much of the news,
Oh, it must be crazy over there in the States at the moment with the impeachment hearings. And, how partisan the media is in the United States. We're similar, but nowhere near as bad, it must be said, in the United States with the Fox versus CNN things. So how do you cope with that as an American citizen? Do you just tune out and just leave it up to the talking heads to try to procure advertising revenues by trying to drive people to opposite ends of the political spectrum?
Well, my wife watches a lot of news. I do not. But I found the impeachment hearings actually fascinating until it got repetitious. I mean, it's very repetitious.
Yeah.
But I like actual news, which means not commentary.
Yes.
So it's hard to find actual news that it isn't. They've got to fill their 24 hours and they fill it mostly with commentary, and there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, but it's just not news. I think we should differentiate. They should just have this is commentary going on, as a little streamer at the bottom, because people think that these guys' opinions is actually what happened, and it's just two different things.
Oh, that's very articulate. Very good way of putting it. I was just having a text conversation with one of my mates who lives over in Thailand a moment ago about that, and so much of journalism and commentary is actually activism dressed up. It ain't news, to your exact point, and there almost needs to be a disclaimer in the same way you buy a packet of cigarettes and it says smoking will kill you on it. There should be something in the way that it said this political commentary will bore you because it isn't news, that sort of thing.
Yeah, well, just, as long as people know the difference, I think that'd be helpful.
Indeed, yeah. All right, let's talk about the music again because, look,
yeah,
I've got to ask, is there, Spocks Beard, Transatlantic, Yellow Matter Custard, your own band, and God knows how many other projects you've been involved in, all quality, it must be said, but is there an aspect of your career so far that really stands out as a personal best?
Wow. One thing that always comes to mind was Transatlantic headlining the Prague Nation cruise several years ago.
Mm-hmm.
That was amazing. Playing Into the Blue as we were leaving Miami. That was, and a real special thing happened on that cruise. We got to perform a bunch of Yes music with John Anderson.
Nice. Yeah.
And that was pretty surreal, I was singing the Chris Squire parts on a lot of the Yes stuff.
Wow,
So
yeah.
here I am singing harmonies with Sean Anderson. That was really, really cool. Yeah, well, actually, every Morse Fest is like a peak experience. Every one of them really have been like, for me in some way, like the closing scene of It's a Wonderful Life or something. It's just, it's so amazing and fulfilling, and there's the music and there's the love and the love of the people and the love of God, and then just the whole thing's just really extremely blessed. I've been really very blessed to live this life.
I guess it begs a question then. Is there any aspect of your extraordinary career that you'd do over again or you'd change?
Oh, well, let's see. Well, I guess I had to do what I had to do. You know how it is, right?
Yeah, I do.
But
Yeah.
I probably would have quit trying to get a major mainstream record deal as a singer-songwriter sooner than I did. I mean, all through the 80s, all through my 20s, I was writing, singer-songwriter songs. And I still write singer-songwriter songs. I put out singer-songwriter albums like Life and Times and Songs from November. And I'll be playing probably quite a few of those, actually, at these gigs, because, that's kind of the vibe of the solo acoustic artist, But I was trying to get a record deal in LA as a singer-songwriter for a long time, till I kind of like got fed up with it and really checked out and quit in about 91. And that's when I started writing some of the music that became Spocks Beard, and but I don't know. I mean, I think it all happened at the right time. I had to go through a lot of stuff to get there.
And I understand now. I was only reading Wikipedia to find this out last night. But you started off singing country. Is that right?
No. I moved to Nashville to try to get a publishing deal with some country companies, because I was dating this girl that was a country singer, and country was just starting to become more pop,
Yep.
And so I tried my hand at writing some stuff like that, and I thought it was pretty good. And I tried that for about a year when I first moved here to Nashville, and it went well, but I just kind of got more involved. That was when the prog stuff started to take off, and that was definitely more where my heart was. So I wound up just throwing myself into that more.
Yeah, well, I guess that leads into the question about who you were influenced by, because it's a heck of a jump if it was country into prog. I don't think anybody's done it, actually, and that's what I thought. You might have been the first person to actually do it. But who did you grow up listening to? Who were you inspired by? Obviously, I know the Beatles were a big influence, but was there anybody else that really, really inspired you?
Oh yeah, like loads of people. I was really, like the Beatles would have been the first. That was the big primary one. But then, I loved a lot of the singer-songwriters like Simon and Garfunkel. I really, later on, I really got into Cat Stevens and James Taylor, and I also got really into what were the heavy rock bands of the time, Black Sabbath, Deep Purple, and then I kind of migrated. I saw Yes open for Black Sabbath, and it really changed my life. And I was like, oh wow, it was like a whole new possibility in music for me. And so then I got really super into Yes, and that led me to Genesis and King Crimson and ELP. Man, I was a big ELP fan. Jethro Tull and Gentle Giant, all those guys. And yeah, but lots of different music. I mean, then later on, I got really into Elvis Costello and Joe Jackson, and man, I could just go on. Peter Gabriel.
Yeah, nice. Yeah,
so much good music.
What did you think of the ELP version that had Cozy Powell and drums?
I didn't really experience that. I wasn't really. I think I was into other stuff when that was happening.
Yeah, I didn't even know it wasn't. It was even a thing until recently, because he's possibly my favourite drummer of all time. and I was looking at his resume, and there it was. He was in ELP, and they actually, I think they changed the name from Palmer to Powell. That's what the P was, whilst he was in the band.
Right.
And I thought, wow, God, I mean, he was such an impactful drummer. But yeah, there you go. Yeah, there's so many great artists that you just mentioned there that, anybody listening, because if you're cool, man, I'll release this as a podcast, host a podcast series, and people, all of the artists that you mentioned there are so important, I think, especially if you're a young and burgeoning musician, because these are the teachers, if you like. And these are the people who, not necessarily if they didn't do it first, they certainly brought it to mainstream attention first. Is that something you'd agree in terms of so much of the wonderful techniques that you employ as well?
Oh yeah, I mean, some of these guys. I mean, you can still listen to some of their early records. Like a record that really blows my mind is ELP's "Pictures at an Exhibition." There it is, I think 1971, and they're playing this thing live. Like it's
incredible.
It's amazing. I'm sure there's no overdubs or anything. I mean, it's just killer. You just listen to it, and guys, like, okay, like when you have it, you have it, and those guys did.
And they're recording to tape as well a lot of the time, aren't they? These guys in the 70s and 80s. So I think that's how it was done. I mean, there's no other way to do it. And
sure.
You're either
all there was.
I mean, you're either on point or you're not. You're on point and you've got a gig, and you can do this, or you're not. And I wouldn't say, because I'm 41, I remember the tail end of some of those, but like working with musicians who came out of that when I was in my very early 20s. And I remember how really, I wouldn't say they were really strict in the rehearsal room, but yeah, you got the look, the sideways eye, I used to call it, if you kept on stuffing up or you weren't really well rehearsed, put it that way. And I think that a lot of young musicians these days, mate, they're really about playing as fast as they possibly can and putting up a YouTube video, but they're not really learning how to be good musicians, which I think the way that I've just described really teaches you. So do you get a lot of young musicians, a lot of starting guitarists and singer-songwriters and that sort of thing reaching out to you and asking you questions?
I do, yeah. And I really enjoy that. I even have something called the Radiant School once a year where, students come to my studio and I spend a week with them writing and, listening to their stuff, coaching them and mixing and, just kind of talking about the whole process. And it's great. Anything I can do, to help. And there's some really killer young players that have come here, actually, young composers too.
Wonderful.
It's cool. I'm trying to help them, get going.
Well, mate, it'd be awesome for an up and coming singer songwriter or composer to have some time with you. Yeah, it's and I guess that leads into the next question from the perspective that I think you are a very influential musician on other musicians, but is there anything in music that's happening right now, say in 2020, that you really like and that is new, that's really caught your ear?
Oh, well, I really like there's these new sort of jazz bands like Snarky Puppy, and I mean they're not that new anymore, but they're still kind of new to some of us. And there's a local band here in Nashville. It's kind of like that. It's called the Dynamo Band, and I saw them play actually at a friend's wedding, and it was like really cool, like jazz fusion, but grooving and different, not effect. It's kind of like this generation's take on jazz fusion. It's just cool.
Yeah, we could.
I like it.
All right, mate, that's it. Yeah, thanks so much for the conversation. I really appreciate it. Yeah, look, I mean, these shows are going to be very well attended, as I'm sure ticket sales have already indicated, mate. So, yeah, I'm so caught up with kids, and I'm back at uni these days. I won't be able to fly down and make it. But if you're playing in Brizzy, mate, hint for next time, see if you can make our city.
Okay.
It'd be awesome to see you.
All right, man. Well, it's been great talking with you, man.
Likewise, mate. Just congratulations, yeah.
Sorry you can't make it to the shows. They're going to be really, really good, I think.
Oh, mate, I'm jealous. I got to say, I'd love to be in the audience, but mate, Mate, I'm sure you'll be back down again because you know you've got a fan base down here, mate. So, mate, just congratulations on an epic career and please keep on doing what you're doing.
All right. Thanks a lot, man.
Thanks, mate. No worries. Good talking to you.
Take care, bro. Bye.
Thanks. Bye. You've been listening to the Scars and Guitars podcast series that, of course, syndicates for the A-List Online, and my name is Andrew Mackay-Smith. That interview subject was the one and only, the prog master himself, Mr. Neal Morse. Thanks for listening.